Welcome to Life Top 5. Scientific theories that were certain, and then weren't. We often think of science as absolute. Something either is or it isn't, and through scientific study we have proof to back up that stark black and white. The reality, though, is that the universe as measured through science is much more complex and unusual. Sometimes the facts just refuse to be consistent at all. Sometimes the results of one study directly or indirectly contradict the findings of another. This is a collection of such scientific contradictions. Number 5. Chocolate is a miracle food that ruins your health. Chocolate is a world favorite food, with some 72 million metric tons of it being consumed every year. 21. It's no surprise then how well studied this food is and how often we'll hear reports about its medical benefits. When browsing scientific papers, there seem to be no end to the health benefits of chocolate. Some studies that have examined this sweet treat concluded that it can help fend off cardiometabolic disorders and cardiovascular diseases. 22. Improves cognitive functions in older adults. 23. Lower blood pressure. 24. And even protect your skin from UV-induced erythema. 25. One study showed chocolate as slowing colon cancer in rats. 26. Chocolate has dozens of minor health benefits to enjoy. However, alongside chocolate's many tiny health benefits, there are substantial consequences to eating chocolate. Most notably could be its high sugar and fat content that leads to obesity. One study concluded that for postmenopausal women, every 1 ounce of chocolate eaten a week increased weight gain by 1 kilogram over a period of 3 years. The more chocolate consumed, the higher 3-year weight gain. 27. This is concerning because obesity can result in diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, respiratory disorders, cancer, cerebrovascular disease, stroke, and many other conditions. 28. Meanwhile, rats may avoid colon cancer by eating chocolate, but in humans chocolate eating seems to be linked with higher chances of prostate cancer. 29. Like so many foods, chocolate is both good for us and bad for us in different ways. Alice H. Lichtenstein, professor of nutrition science and policy at Tufts University in Boston, summed it up nicely when she said, "If you enjoy chocolate, the important thing to do is choose the type you enjoy the most and eat it in moderation because you like it, not because you think it is good for you." Number 4. Red meat is unhealthy. Maybe. We're not sure. A rack of ribs during a summer barbecue or a hot dog during a spring baseball game. Red meat is a staple in many a diet, and to some its taste elevates it above other foods. There's something truly satisfying about a perfectly cooked and seasoned steak, but our reverence for red meat has historically been met with caution from the scientific community. Studies have shown that processed red meats like hot dogs 35 increase the risk of glioma, a tumor that occurs in the brain and spinal cord. 36. Still other findings showed increased risk of colorectal cancer from eating red meat. 37. Yet another negative of the food is the accumulation of trimethylamine N oxide 38, which is a cause of heart disease. 39. All of this led to most health groups recommending we limit our intake of red meats, especially the processed variety. However, a recent and controversial meta-analysis study, a scientific study that is actually an examination of many different studies on the topic and comes to a conclusion based on all of the results put together, 40 published in Annals of Internal Medicine, argued that there was not enough scientific evidence to support the recommendations to eat less red meat. Based on this meta-analysis, they concluded, the certainty of evidence for the potential adverse health outcomes associated with meat consumption was low to very low, and there was a very small and often trivial absolute risk reduction based on a realistic decrease of 3 servings of red or processed meat per week. 41 Their conclusion was not that red meat was healthy, but that there was not yet significant enough proof that it was harmful to suggest limiting red meat intake for health. Reasons. Number 3. Video games improves or impairs children's social skills. For gamers, it is an age-old frustration to hear that video games rot your brain. This sentiment has followed the industry since the first wave of video games hit the arcades, but while it was well recited by some, there was no evidence to back it up. With time, the scientific community was able to turn their attention to video games and study the effects on children for themselves. One paper published in the Social Psychiatry and Psychiatric Epidemiology studied children ages 6–11. The study measured each child's video game play time per day and compared it to data gathered from questionnaires given to their parents, teachers, and the children themselves. They also looked at each child's academic performance. After certain factors were accounted for, they found that higher video game play time among the children was associated with 1.75 times the odds of high intellectual functioning and 1.88 times the odds of high overall school competence, as well as less relationship problems with their peers. 42 Catherine M. Keyes, Ph.D., the assistant professor of epidemiology at the Mailman School of Public Health, commented on the results of this study, saying, "Video game playing is often a collaborative leisure time activity for school-aged children. These results indicate that children who frequently play video games may be socially cohesive with peers and integrated into the school community. We caution against over-interpretation, however, as setting limits on screen usage remains an important component of parental responsibility as an overall strategy for student success." 43 And she was wise to suggest parents still be involved in limiting children's screen time, because another study also examined the effect of video games on children, but this study examined their lives over the course of 6 years, starting when they were 6 years old. 44 873 Norwegian school children were involved, and every 2 years their parents reported how much time was spent video gaming, and teachers evaluated the children's social competence using such factors as how well they followed directions, controlled their behavior, and showed confidence in social situations. The results showed that poor social performance was linked to an increase of video gaming in the future, but that video gaming itself did not lower social skills in the future, except for one notable group. 10-year-old girls in the study that had high levels of video game play time were found to be less socially competent at 12 years old than the girls who didn't have high video game play time. 45 While video games are shown to be helpful for most, it isn't a universal truth. For some it increased social skills, but for others it depletes them. Number 2 Early rising is a blessing and a bane. The early bird gets the worm is a common idiom often heard from the mouths of early risers, some waking up and being productive before the sun. What they do for good reason, as one survey has shown. Published in the Journal of Applied Social Psychology, one study questioned 367 university students about their sleeping habits and proactivity. It included such statements for them to agree or disagree with, such as "I spend time identifying long-range goals for myself and I feel in charge of making things happen." Ultimately, the survey found that morning people were more proactive than evening types, and people with small differences in rise time between weekdays and free days were also more proactive persons. 46 The author of the survey said, "When it comes to business success, morning people hold the important cards. My earlier research showed that they tend to get better grades in school, which get them into better colleges, which then lead to better job opportunities. Morning people also anticipate problems and try to minimize them," my survey showed. They're proactive. A number of studies have linked this trait, proactivity, with better job performance, greater career success, and higher wages. 47 On the other side of the coin, a study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism examined 447 men and women between the ages of 30-54, who worked at least 25 hours outside their home and found that their early rising did not line up with their natural circadian rhythm. 48 Patricia M. Wong, MS, from the University of Pittsburgh said about this study, "Social jet lag refers to the mismatch between an individual's biological circadian rhythm and their socially imposed sleep schedules." Other researchers have found that social jet lag relates to obesity and some indicators of cardiovascular function. However, this is the first study to extend upon that work and show that even among healthy, working adults who experience a less extreme range of mismatches in their sleep schedule, social jet lag can contribute to metabolic problems. These metabolic changes can contribute to the development of obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. Number 1 Eating eggs does and doesn't contribute to cardiovascular disease. Eggs are a dietary staple for much of the world. In fact, 73% of adults are considered whole egg consumers. 50 Naturally then, the effects eggs have on our health is a topic of concern for many and so has been a topic of study for the scientific community. The trouble is the information hasn't been entirely conclusive. Historically, one of the major health complaints against eggs is the 185 milligrams of cholesterol in the yolk. Certain forms of cholesterol are shown to increase the risk of heart disease. 51 And science seems to support this concern. A 2019 study that monitored participants over a 17.5-year period found that each additional half egg consumed by an adult per day increased the likelihood of cardiovascular disease by 6% and even increased general mortality rate by 8%. 52-53 Confoundingly, though, the science is not always consistent. The same subject during the same year, a separate study examined the effect of eggs on the likelihood of cardiovascular disease and it found no statistically significant link. 54 An author of the study, Maria Luz Fernandez, professor of nutritional sciences at the University of Connecticut, described eggs as having high cholesterol, but low saturated fat. The point being was, she said, while the cholesterol in eggs is much higher than in meat and other animal products, saturated fat increases blood cholesterol. This has been demonstrated by lots of studies for many years. In other words, the cholesterol in eggs may not be the killer we thought. There are systems in place so that, for most people, dietary cholesterol isn't a problem, said Research Associate Professor of Nutritional Sciences at Tufts University, Elizabeth Johnson.